Hey everybody, Soulless Reviews here. Today we're going to talk about Strangeulation 2 by Tech9. Now, I'm a Tech9 fan, but to me, I was willing to put Adele and Jadakiss and Freddie Gibbs over him, considering the fact that they're more substantial artists. And that, Adele obviously is a major pop artist. Jadakiss has a longevity behind him in the pop industry, and Freddie Gibbs, he's been on a high roll considering the fact that Pinata was such a smash hit. But then, first of all, I was going to do Adele. Why not get the pop giant out of the way? So I looked up Adele, and she's actually not on Spotify. Like, what the hell is up with that? Her album isn't on Apple Music or Spotify, so I can't subscribe to listen to it. So I'm kind of in a rut for that. I got to figure out how I'm going to listen to the album. The only way I can do it is if I go buy it. And, guys, I buy albums. It's what I do. I love buying albums. So it's not like I'm the kind of guy who just be, illegally download shit. It's the fact that it's a little frustrating that I can't listen to the album before I go and buy it if it's bad, which, it's Adele. She's a goddess. She's not going to be bad. But that's a totally different story. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to listen to 25, but that's different. What I'm saying now is the fact that the reason Tech9 is the first artist I am going to listen to is because I love Tech9. I really do. Everything about him is just great, especially his work ethic. He doesn't just focus on himself. He knows he's a powerful force in the rap game, but what he's trying to do now is elevate everybody on his label and its label in itself. He could just as easily just promote himself and not care about anybody else, but he does a great job of promoting everybody on his label, like Murs, Ritz, the Says Crew, Chris Calico, all those guys. He does a great job, especially with these collabo albums. This is the second one in the series. I hope it continues. I love how he promotes everybody on the label. So I thought, you know what? Tech9 puts in the effort. He does a great job doing it. He's a fantastic rapper. I love him. So, why not just listen to Tech9? There's the first album I'm going to listen to on this weekend. We got a lot of albums coming out. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to listen to Strangeulation Part 2 by Tech9, and then afterwards, I'm going to tell you guys just how I feel about it. Who is Darren Safran? Because I'm not calling him Darren Safran anymore. I'm calling him Mr. Buzzkill, because every time he made his appearance on this album, he just killed the whole entire vibe of the project. So I did a little research on this guy, because I really wanted to understand why he's on Strange Music, and it made sense when I researched it. He's an R&B crooner from St. Louis, and, yes, he's an R&B singer, but he also comes packed with his more side of him that dabbles in more rock instrumentals. So Tech9, on his last album, Special Effects, did songs like Give It All and Wither, where he experimented successfully with the rock genre, and he wanted to get that rock feel on his own label. He wanted to get an artist that can kind of do rock instrumentals, too. So that's why he's on here, because he wants an artist on his label that can do rock. And I understand that to an extent, but still, every time Mr. Buzzkill appears on this album, it's a buzzkill. For instance, on the track, We Just Wanna Party. Now, I wasn't that big into Tech's flow on that. He was doing that really speedy flow and then immediate stop, and then really speedy flow, immediate stop, kind of like what Eminem's doing in this new age of his rap career. And I don't really like that flow, but I wasn't going to hold that too much against the track. It was pretty decent. The beat was nice, and also Ritz came in and kind of killed it towards the end. He rode the beat really nice. But every time it cut away to the really airy and upbeat, upbeat melody hook, it really killed the vibe of the track. The track is supposed to be a party track. Tech9's talking about how he's stirring up his Caribou Lou, and he's just going to have a grand old time with bitches with him and Ritz. And every time Mr. Buzzkill came on with the hook, it just killed the whole feel of the track. I didn't feel like I was just jamming out with Tech anymore. I felt like I was getting this really lame-ass hook that he just didn't really think all the way through. Or on the track Fired, where Mr. Buzzkill also appeared again, and it wasn't really exactly his fault. The theme on this track wasn't all that great, too. It was just talking about how they have assistants just for sex, and how if they don't do their job right, they'll just fire them. It was really a lame topic for Tech9 standards. But the fact that Mr. Buzzkill was on it didn't help all that much. I honestly I can't handle his voice. It's too mellow for Tech9's feel. Tech9 is this really hard dude, and Tech9 can mellow himself out when he wants to contribute to other artists' work, as he's shown on this album. But the problem is, when he's contributing to this other light artist, when he has this other light artist on his work, it just makes it too light of a feel when Tech9's going in with some verses. And on that track, Fired, he does have the line, bad head day like Donald Trump. I'm like, oh geez, that's really corny. But still, I'm willing to look past some of Tech9's rhyming flaws, because there's not a whole lot of them. But the fact when he has someone like Mr. Buzzkill on the song, it just doesn't help the case. And lastly, Real With Yourself, which was solely Mr. Buzzkill track featuring Tech9, and that was the time when it was like, okay, show them what you can do, Mr. Buzzkill, and to me, it just wasn't all that impressive. Not necessarily bad, I'm not ripping on this guy's talent, but it just wasn't all that interesting to me. It's just his vocals sound decent at best at times. There's nothing all that special about them. And really the track was solely just to express rock instrumentals, as obviously there's a nice guitar string in the background, which it was an okay guitar string, but the fact that it mellowed out so much with his vocals just made it okay. Really forgettable track, nothing that I liked all that much. Again, I can appreciate what Tech Nine's going for. Try and get a somewhat rock artist on your label so you can use him more than stretching for other rock artists. But that idea has to work, and it really just doesn't on most of the tracks that he's featured on this album. They just come off to be pretty plain, and I'm not that into his vocals either. And I really like when Tech Nine is taking the time to work with people on his label, like Chris Calico. I really like the dynamic that Calico and Tech have, but for some reason on some of these tracks he felt the need to pair up him and Ritz just for the speedy flow effect. He didn't focus on having Chris Calico be kind of Chris Calico and work with Tech Nine. There were some times when that did happen, but I felt like he was relying a little bit too much on the idea that Ritz and Calico can spit fast and put him on tracks like Slow to Me and the Fourth Cypher. And then lastly, I am a big Murs fan. Have a Nice Life was a really good album. It's one of my favorite hip-hop albums this year. I think it's underrated as hell. But still, one Murs verse, actually two Murs verses, but one of them was the Cypher, and then on Blunt and a Hoe, he even blatantly admitted this is not the type of track that Murs fits on, yet he kind of had Murs rap on it, and it was a little creative because Murs isn't the one to smoke, and it was kind of a smoking track, and it was like, oh, this is kind of ironic. But still, it really felt like Murs just was kind of uncomfortable. Like, he was playing along with it, but it didn't feel like his lyrics were comfortable. Not until he did the Metal Giant Cypher. There was a remix of his Metal Giant track on the Cypher V where Murs rapped over it. That's where I felt like Murs was most creative, because he had this creative freedom to just kind of freestyle, and it sounded really good. But when he was constrained to talking about smoking and a blunt and a hoe, it just didn't sound like he was all that comfortable with the subject matter that he was presented with. And I'm a big Murs fan, so I kind of wanted a little bit more Murs and tracks where he could express himself a little bit more. Now, those kind of seem like nitpicks, and they kind of are, because I'm a Strange Music fan, and I like to see it executed properly, but still, the first couple of tracks on here, I loved hearing. The first Cypher one, which is just Tech Nine, all the way through, probably Triple M. Not only was Tech Nine ripping each of those tracks apart, but he had great help from the Sez crew, Chris Calico, Ritz. Stevie Stone even surprised me with some of his lyrics on here. I wasn't a big Stevie Stone fan, especially with his really long-ass album dropped earlier this year, but he pulled through on a lot of these. I was a little depressed the fact that Stevie Stone had more verses than Murs, but Stevie Stone actually came through here pretty well. I love the idea they went for on Slow to Me, because a lot of people rip on Tech Nine because, the only reason you like Tech Nine is because he raps really fast. He's not even that good of a rapper. In reality, he really is. He includes a lot of good lyrical content, and in that track he's saying, if this is too fast for you, then why don't you just go ahead and chop and screw it, or just don't even listen to it, because this is slow to me, you know what, F you. It's a big F you to people who don't like him for being fast, and fuck it, he did it well. that track is really dope. And also Triple M, I think it was a step up from his, on the last Strangeulation Volume 1, it had an American Horror Story track, and I feel like Triple M was a step up from that. It was taking that and elaborating on it. It's like his mind felt like a Michael Myers mask, and I thought that was extremely creative. And although, maybe it just wasn't the most creative thing in the world, but it definitely took a step up from just saying, saying he's a psychopath or something like that. He took it a step further to make that a creative idea, and it was just a really good track. I really liked the fact that it was a good track. So really, outside of the nitpicks that I had, like having Chris and Ritz work together, and I didn't like Mr. Buzzkill all that much, the big, downside of this project is there's a lot of tracks that could have, if you wanted to make it this long, you could have made these tracks way better. Fired just wasn't all that interesting of a track, Chili Rub wasn't all that interesting of a track, Wake and Bake wasn't all that interesting of a track. Just some of these tracks they just didn't interest me all that well, and it was mostly because the subject matter, the idea that Tech was going for, just wasn't all that an intriguing one. He's trying to generalize the ideas so all of the rappers that he's putting on the track can work with it, but even in doing that, it just sounded kind of dull. I don't know. To me, it just sounded like the subject matter towards the end just wasn't. He was trying to compromise it to have the rappers he was going to feature on there do good. Whereas the beginning tracks were more hardcore. There's more eerie kind of feel to them. It was really like Tech Nine was trying to be creepy in the beginning of it, but towards the end was just trying to make more generalized topics so the rappers would fit on them. It just didn't work all that much. I really liked the fact that he was going hard with other rappers in the beginning, but towards the end it kind of fell off for me a little bit. But I mean, overall, Tech Nine is spittin', and if there's one thing you need to take away from this album, it's the fact that Tech Nine is having fun with it. There are some times when I'm like, I don't know if I like this all that much, but there's always one thing I can take away from every track on here, and it's the fact that Tech Nine is just having fun making this album. It doesn't sound like he's putting in the work to make this album a good album, but he's also not taking it too seriously. And like, you can tell he's not like whipping his artists to do good verses. He's just like, dude, just have fun on this album. Just do what you want. This is a nice ass beat. There's a good instrumental in the background. Like, there's some good melody. Just do what you want. Like, just rap and do good. And they do. The rappers, they pull through on this album. I really didn't have a problem with the rappers on this album. I think everybody on Strange Music knows how to rip a track apart and do good at it. On this album, you're going to hear Tech Nine going in and really ripping some of these tracks apart, and you're also going to hear his label mates going in and hearing some good verses from them, and it might inspire you. The whole point of this, I think, is to inspire you to check out other artists on Strange Music, which I have. I really appreciate some of the other artists on there. They put in good work. But this album, if anything, it should make you realize that they're a grand old time on this label, and they're having a good time putting together this nice body of work, and I feel like in the end, it came off as a pretty decent album. Some flaws, yes, but overall, it was a pretty solid album. I enjoyed listening to it, especially the beginning tracks. The beginning tracks were hard as fuck, and even towards the end, I was still enjoying I'm listening to it, I'm like, yeah, these tracks aren't that good, but I'm enjoying hearing the good time that Strange Music is having making this album. And overall, it was a pretty good album. I really appreciated what Tech Nine's doing. He doesn't give up. He's always putting in work, and it shows. It really shows. This album is good. It's a solid project. Nothing great, but nothing bad by any means. And that is all I got for you guys. If you would like to like or subscribe, that'd be awesome. I really appreciate it, and till next time, Soulless Reviews.